The Canon 1D was released in 2001. The Canon 1DS was released in 2002. Just how much difference can a year actually make? Well, not much actually. A cursory glance at both bodies will show that they're basically identical. They have every single button in the exact same place. The only cosmetic difference is that little S right there. And if we look on the inside, we'll find they both share the same 45-point autofocus system, which I know doesn't sound crazy by modern standards, but this autofocusing system was outrageous in 2001 standards. I will assure you though, both cameras are incredibly quick and incredibly accurate. Which leads us to our first real difference with these two cameras. The original 1D was geared more towards sports photographers. It has a burst rate of 8 frames per second, whereas the 1DS only has a burst rate of 3 frames per second. By the way, it should be noted both cameras are kind of slow writing to the memory card by modern standards. Now, if we move on to the sensors, we find the real difference between these two cameras. The 1D has a 4.15 megapixel CCD sensor with a 1.3 times crop, whereas the 1DS has a full-frame 11.1 megapixel CMOS sensor. Now, I actually like the look of CCD sensors, but a 4 megapixel CCD sensor might be a deal breaker for some users. So having said that, let's do a side-by-side shot-for-shot comparison of these two cameras. Both cameras have a standard Canon 50mm f1.8 lens. Now, the first most obvious difference is the 1DS is full frame, and so it has a wider field of view with a shallower depth of field. Here's a good example of just how different the field of view is. When I set up this shot of this hose thingy, I actually held both cameras in my hands to assure that my feet didn't move in any way, shape, or form. See just how much wider the 1DS really is. Another thing to note too is the full frame sensor lets in so much more light that the settings are actually different on all these cameras. Even though the ISO is at 200 and the aperture is at f4, I've actually got a faster shutter speed on the 1DS to match the look of the 1D. So which one should you buy? Well, for me personally, I shoot a lot of portraits, so I would go for the 1DS. I like the look of a full-frame sensor when it comes to taking pictures of people. Having said that, if you're into any kind of casual sports photography, like, I don't know, maybe you have kids and you want to take pictures of their sporting events or something like that, I would consider the 1D. While both cameras have really good autofocus, the 1D has that really quick 8 frames per second burst rate. That's definitely going to come in handy for shooting any type of action. By the way, don't let the 4 megapixels of the 1D scare you off. If the majority of your pictures are just for personal use or for social media, the 1D is perfectly fine. For example, I posted this picture here on Instagram the other day and no one asked me, hey man, was that taken on a 19-year-old camera? Was that 4 megapixel? No, like, either way, both cameras are a great bargain at $200 and under. And by the way, it's worth mentioning the Canon 1D Mark II is now selling on eBay for around $189. That's basically the exact same thing as the Canon 1D, except for it has an 8 megapixel sensor instead of a 4 megapixel sensor. That's also worth considering. Anyway, I think that's all I've got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.